Snippets are one of Visual Studio Code's most powerful features. And also snippets are what really makes you a speedy developer. Especially when you're developing JavaScript or React or Angular, snippets can save your life and can 10,000 times increase your productivity. Now, first of all, where are our snippets? Let's go to Manage, Settings, and type in Snippets. Now here are just a few basic settings for our snippets. You can control whether the snippets are shown with auto suggestions, inline, top, bottom, none. You can control if you want to show snippets, and when this is enabled, as it says here, IntelliSense shows snippet suggestions. But you can find our snippets by going to Edit Settings JSON. But also let me show you something very quick. Now if you open up your command prompt, so Ctrl-Shift-P, and type in snippets, you can do two things. Configure user snippets or general code snippets. Now these are two separate things. Also if you have React environment, also if you have a React or Angular or some kind of environment with, for example, Node.js setup, then you will have different snippets to edit. So let's go to user config snippets. And from here now we can choose what kind of snippets we want to edit. New global snippets, or I think somewhere here is also our basic JavaScript snippets, okay? Now we can also edit JSON snippets, I believe, PHP, there's our React, TypeScript snippets, JSON, JavaScript, HTML. I just type in React. There we go, JavaScript React snippets. Now, but I'm going to just show you really quickly what the JavaScript snippets do. So let's go into JavaScript. Now, here's an example. A snippet is composed out of a name, for example, print to the console, prefix, log, body, and then you type in something in here, and then a description, log output to the console. Now, let's go in here and so let's create here a new file, Control N, and I'm going to, let's call it this X example.js. We don't need the JSON, just JS. Okay, now within our JS, you know, if I do console log, then this is a snippet. So CLG is for console log, and this will display a message in the console from JavaScript ES6 code snippets. Okay, and here's the example. If you type in CLG, you will get console log, and within there a object. So let's create our own custom console log. Let's try this. Let's go into our JavaScript, and first of all, we need to give it a name. So let's call this one, what should we call it? XCLG. Okay, now we'll create within here a few key value pairs. Now remember, this is a JSON what we're editing. JSONs must always have within quotations the keys and the values, and to be more precise, between double quotes. If you want to know more about JSON and also JavaScript, I have an excellent JavaScript course out there, so check it out. Okay, so within here we will just type in the prefix. So we said it should have, actually this is the prefix, so our name, which will be here, example console log. And I'm going to copy this. I know I didn't tell you about keyboard shortcuts, but to use Shift, Control, or Command, and this will step to the end, but I want to go a bit back, so Shift here, arrows, and then Control X, go down here, and type in here prefix, exactly as it stands here in the example, prefix, outside. We will now type in our prefix within quotations, which will be XCLG. Okay, comma. And now for our body, within quotations, body, and this will do the following. It will create a console.log and open and close parenthesis. Now another comma, and now for the description, we type in description, you can see the snippet description. IntelliSense already knows what we're trying to do. So this will create a custom console log. Okay, let's save this. And now let's go in here. Now we have our console.log. Then we have our CLG. And we also have our EXCLG. And as soon as I type this in, you will see this will create a custom console log user snippet. And it will give us a custom console log. Now the difference between this and this one up here, let me show you again. We close up. If I type in console log and hit enter, you see it gives me an object and the cursor remains within the parentheses. And if I type in here example XCLG, it jumps out of it. And also it doesn't end it with a quotation mark. Now let's go back in here and say, hey, you should end here and jump down to the next line. So let's hit save. Let's go back in here. Let's try this again. XCLG. Let's hit enter, and there we go. Now it has our closing quotations. But we also, hey, console, let me spell something. Console. There we go. Now, if you want to remain within the parentheses, we need to use a variable. So the way we can do that is by going in here and typing in a $sign and the number 1. And this just means, actually, I think it also works without the number 1. So let's just do this, hit save, and let's see what happens when we do our example CLG, hit enter, and no, it doesn't work. It actually needs to have the 1 within it. So let's hit save again, try this again, example console log, and it remains within there. Now, what if we want to have 2 variables? For example, you know, JavaScript has a short snippet for a for loop. So if I type in here for each, and I go down here, you'll see I will get this internal snippet JavaScript language basics. So array.for each element, and this is actually within an arrow function, not even an arrow. Yeah, it's within an arrow function, but it's only one function, so you don't need the parentheses. So let's try this. So if I just type in for each, hit enter, I'll get this snippet. Now you know that we actually need here a, let's say, const of some sort of array. I don't want to use array. Let's say on cars, and we'll assign this to an array of Ford, BMW, I don't know, just a few cars, and let's say Audi. Okay, so hit save, and this car should go in here. So for each car, we want a car, and then we will call this car, and we will assign a style to it, and each car should have a color of, I don't know, something red. Now, how can we do this? How can we create our own snippet with different variables? And this is a perfect example. Let's go into snippets, and we see we need to do this. So we will have 1, 2, and here's a third one, but it's the same. So 2 variables. Now let's do this. I'm actually going to hold this in a copy. So Control C, go within JavaScript, and let's say this will be a array, a custom array snippet. snippet. Okay, so let's do this. Actually, we need here a comma. I'm going to paste this one in, and I'm going to also copy what we had in our other snippet and paste this one in. So for array, let's just say cos or example array. Doesn't matter. Cos r or xr, example array xr. Okay, and this will create. Now I can copy this. Cut this out. Command or Control X for all you Mac users and PC users, and we need here quotation, double quotes, and we also need here double quotes. Now here's our first variable, so this will be $1, then for the comma will be $2, and here we'll have also $2, and I can actually part because I don't need it. Okay, now for the description, now I need to go back with this. So once go back here, and we should also go back here. And for the description, we'll call this will create a custom array. Okay, so let's try this quickly out. Go back in here and let's type in X array X R, and you will see here the first one is blinking. Then we have two more variables. So let's type in here cars and then tab, and it will jump to these two, and we'll type, and here we will type in car. Okay, now if we hit save, this is our custom array, and we can do now style dot color again. Okay, now let's say where are snippets. Now let's give another example of where snippets are extremely useful. For example, if I would do a add event listener, normally a add event listener, which is commonly used, is for an ID, and you will do something like const, and I don't know, let's just say for name, we would use document dot get element by ID, and within here we will have the same name within the strings of name. Okay, we use our name ID. Now if we do this, we can create a quick snippet exactly as we did for each loop. So let me just copy this. I'm going to go down here, create a new custom. Actually, let me paste it in here. Paste it down here. I'm going to create here, put in here comma, copy the above one, paste it down here, and I'm going to cut this one out and replace it within here. Okay, this is not good, and we don't need you. So this will be a custom get element by ID. Okay, and we will use get ID as the snippet, and this will get a const with a $sign here variable, and here the same variable. Okay, and let's create a custom get element by ID. Now, okay, let's try this quickly out. So let's go back into JavaScript and let's say I did type in here again. No, I got get. Okay, so let's say get ID. And didn't I save this? Yep, I didn't save it. Okay, now it's saved. So let's type in here get ID. If I hit enter, I will get here my ID, and let's say name, and we'll have our name. All right. Now another thing we can create is, for example, I can also use this for add event listener. Let me actually do a event listener so you also have this example. Now normally you would have something like const and then a name. Actually, let's say const a button, And hey, let's do this. So using quickly snippets, I will just say get ID, and I will use ID of button. Okay, let's save this, and now I would do something like button dot add event listener, and we'll listen for the common thing for adding an event listener to a button is a click, and when this click happens, we'll use a arrow function, and this function will do something. Now, only by having this, only by having this little part, we already could create a snippet from this one. Okay, so let me copy this, go back into the syntax, paste it in here, also copy this one, and let's say here custom event click. Okay, say click. Let's see. Let's type in here click. Click event. Event click. Okay, so let's type in here a eve click. And we know that this is going to, this will create, no, this will add a event listener. Okay, now let's change this. Let's cut this one out and paste it in here. And let's go back with this one. A few lines of code, and there we go. Now this should work. Let's save it. So if click, let's go back into our JavaScript, and now we will just do so button dot if. Actually, I can't do this. What I can do, how did I save it? I need a variable here. Okay, so let's replace here the button with a variable. Let's save it. Let's go back into our JavaScript, and let's say add or eve click. Let's hit enter, and for this we will use our button. Okay, and we basically did the same thing. Quickly edit a event listener. Now another thing you can do is, for example, for a for loop. Now if I type in here for, go down here on our snippet, you will see for let index equals 0, then index small as the length of the array, increment index plus 1, so increment by itself, and const element. Let me hit enter, and let me explain to you how this is done. Now instead of using numbers, we can use indexes. Now I'm going to copy this, go back into our snippets, paste it in down here, copy this one, and I'm going to rename this custom for loop. And say x for the prefix, and let me take this out of here and replace it within here. Now the way we do this is before the index we would add our variable sign, and also here for the array would be the second one, and the index would be the first one again. Now array and index. Okay, now I need to go back with this one. They all need to be on one line. Okay, and this is, whoa, Control Z. There we go. This will add a, that's where this will create a custom for loop. Okay, let's hit save, and let's try this out. So x4 is our example for loop. x4, let's hit enter. As you can see, for the first one, you can now just type in I and hit tab, and the second one will be cars. Hit save, and there's our array. Actually, don't need this one down here, this one down here. Okay, so I hope you understand snippets. As I said, this is extremely powerful. And snippets are some of the most powerful features of Visual Studio Code.